Billy's been bouncing around the place this morning like a rubber ball. I don't know if it's because it's snowing, albeit lightly, or if there's snow on the ground, maybe an inch or two. But he's been looking for fun, which I love to watch because Billy is probably the most active cat in the house right now since I don't have any kittens. He's been watching, see the tail? That's Cha-Cha's tail, who just jumped up on my lap. But Billy's keeping an eye on her because he loves to tease her. I really thought he was going to jump her a few minutes ago, but he didn't. He's just sitting there watching, and he's probably going to take a nap instead of doing what I was hoping he was going to do. He was climbing up and down the chair and rolling around and being pure cat a few minutes ago, but he's not doing that now. I'm going to try to get a story in here. When we moved to the big house, one of the things that I always did was go to the farm with my dad when it started to storm. If there was thunder or lightning outside, I knew right away that Dad was going to leap out of bed, get his clothes on, and go up to the farm. One of the things about raising livestock is that you have to know what happens to them if there's bad weather or good weather or whatever. In any case, if there was thunder and lightning, Dad knew that if the ducks were outside and hadn't been put in for the night during the summer when they did stay outside at night, the storm was more than likely to stampede them. And if they stampeded, they literally killed each other because they were just like people. If they stampeded, they ran blindlessly over the next one in line or in the bunch or whatever. They just stomped on you. So, or they stomped on each other. So, Dad, as I said, would jump out of bed, and I would hear him, and I'd jump up too, and get into my clothes, and run after Daddy, and jump in the truck or the station wagon, whatever vehicle he had at the house, and go with him up to the farm. As soon as we got up to the farm, we'd park near the pens, and Dad would jump out, and probably Joe Cebulski, who was his foreman, would also already be there. They lived on the farm in the farmhouse that I live in now. And we'd start to chase the ducks in. The doors on the front of the long duck house went up and down, and they were released so that they closed if the ducks were inside, but when the ducks were outside, they were latched open. So we'd all get out by the fence, the far fence. As I said once before, it was just wire, chicken wire, stretched between posts. And we'd have to chase the ducks in. And it was dark, and it was wet and sludgy, and the lightning and thunder would be battling each other for prominence, and we'd be in the pens halfway to our knees. Well, I was halfway to my knees. Dad and Joe and whoever else were up to their ankles in duck manure and wet duck manure and filthy water and whatever. And we'd be yelling at the ducks, "Go ducks, duck, 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 quack, 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 go duck, 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 duck," and chasing them inside the duck house. If they did stay outside and were mesmerized by the thunder and the lightning and stood staring up at the sky with their beaks wide open, they would drown. So it was absolutely necessary that we chased the ducks in when weather came on like that, especially in the middle of the night when it was dark and the ducks would be confused and they couldn't find their way into the duck houses. So that was one of the things I did as a kid. It continued after we moved to the big house when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And actually, I loved doing it. It meant going someplace with Daddy. One of the stories that was really funny was, well, it wasn't funny maybe, but it was funny. Dad and Uncle Sam had to deliver ducks into the city to Schmolke Bernstein and to the Chinese restaurants. The Chinese restaurants wanted our ducks because they were, first of all, it was the only kosher duck farm on Long Island. It was also inland, which meant the water was fresh. Dad used wells and pumps in order to fill the troughs for the ducks. But the Chinese wanted our ducks because they were killed kosher style, which means they had been bled. So they were very, very clean. And they were perfect for Peking duck, which had to, the ducks had to hang after they were coated for at least a day to dry out, and they didn't smell because they had no blood in their veins, and the Chinese didn't have to kosher them or soak them themselves, which I guess saved a lot of time and effort. Anyway, Dad and Uncle Sam drove into the city one very early morning with a load of eviscerated and prepared ducks for the Chinese restaurant or Schmolke Bernstein, I'm not sure which. Schmolke Bernstein was a distributor way downtown in the packing district. And they backed up to the loading dock and were getting ready to unload the ducks when a couple of other trucks pulled up, and they ordered, one of the men in one of the trucks ordered Dad to move his truck because he needed to unload his ducks and he wanted to be first. And Dad said no. They were there first, and they were going to unload their ducks and so that they could make the ride home, because it was a long trip from eastern Long Island into the Lower East Side. And they needed to get back home to the farm. So the two men in the other truck tried to bully them. Well, Dad may have looked like Errol Flynn, but he was built like a farm boy, all muscle. He was about 6 feet tall and solid muscle. And Uncle Sam had been a wrestler in high school, and he was a plug. I mean, he was short, but he was built like you would imagine a wrestler to be, solid as a rock. And the men challenged Uncle Sam and Dad, and they apparently jumped onto the loading dock and were going to throw Uncle Sam and Dad off and make them get out of the way. And the next thing they knew, they were flying through the air back into the vicinity of their own truck, thanks to Uncle Sammy's huge strength and Dad's agility. And that was something that never happened again because word must have gotten around. Dad and Uncle Sam unloaded their ducks and made their merry way back to Center Birches. That was one story that we were told over and over again, and it was made to be funny, even though it really wasn't. The Mafia had strongholds in the city back then, and they weren't about to let a couple of country guys get the better of them, but in this case, Uncle Sam and Dad sure did. The other story I wanted to tell was because us kids loved going with Dad when he took the truck and made deliveries. We went upstate with him to make deliveries to Ellenville and the other Jewish areas in the Catskills. Well,